All right, one game left. Miami of Florida versus Indiana for the 2026 College Football Playoff National Championship. Who better to break it down than the three guys you've relied on all season long? Myself, Bryan Power, Ross the Boss Benjamin, and Ralph Michaels here with you. 3 free plays coming right up for you for Monday's championship game here on the Blitz. Thank you to everyone joining us live here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Now, whether you're catching us live or on the replay, you can always feel free to share your thoughts and questions down in the comments section below. While you're down there, go ahead and like and subscribe. Now to Miami, Florida versus Indiana, the game that I don't think a lot of people expected at the start of the season, needless to say, Ralph and Ross, but it is the game we have for Monday. The look-ahead line, this is where I want to start the discussion because it has been a big discussion on social media, at least from what I've seen. The look-ahead line for this matchup before Indiana destroyed Oregon in the semifinal was -5.5. Now the line is sitting -8.5. Much has been made of the adjustment. Ralph, I'm going to go to you first. Do you think the adjustment from the look ahead to current is fair, or is this an over adjustment by the lines makers?
You know, I made the game 7.5. So, I mean, we're 1 point away. And let's remember this. Indiana's fan base is excited. And remember, the look-ahead line is based on what the handicappers think the game should be. The current line is based on what people bet. So just because the game goes from 6.5 to 8.5 doesn't mean the bookmakers think the game should be 8.5. The bookmakers think it should be 6.5. The Indiana fans betting this game make it 8.5. I'm going to bring up something, and Ross is going to make fun of me again because I was talking about ticket sales once, and he goes we're going to base the play on ticket sales. Indiana has the largest living alumni base in college football. We saw them have a massive crowd edge in each of their 2 games. Indiana is expected to have a 60-40 crowd edge here, Brian. I know we're going to be talking about that later. So I think this, again, the 7.5 is right in between. If I had to make a choice watching these 2 teams in the playoffs, I think 7 and under line would be more legitimate of the value between these 2 teams. Doesn't mean I'm going to get to the Miami side, but I think there is a point and a half overreaction with the Hoosiers and the Hoosier fans.
All right. Ross, I'll tell you this. If this line was -5.5, I would be betting Indiana very, very large. I'll say that. But Ralph brings up a great point that, perhaps that was a slip of the tongue that I made there when I said odds makers over adjusting. Obviously, odds makers just want to get equal action on the side of the number here. Do you think that it has more to do with the public? Obviously, it was the second of the 2 semifinals, what Indiana did to Oregon. Is this just a deal where, and look, I'm looking at the betting splits right now. The public is clearly in love with Indiana for this,
no doubt.
at least the early money. So is that what you just think this is? The odds makers anticipate, hey, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is going to want to bet Indiana.
It's perception, more than anything, and I'm not saying the line's not justified or Indiana won't cover, but that adjustment from 5.5 to an opener of 7.5 to now 8.5. Look, here's the thing. Not only are they adjusting to what happened in the Oregon game, they're also looking back and saying they also crushed Alabama and made them look like an FCS team. So they're coming off 2 extremely impressive performances. And when you really look at Miami and their wins, yes, they're against very top flight competition, obviously, but it's not like they wowed you in any of those games. So it's also the eye test that they're basing that perception on, what the casual or novice bettor is going to react to. That's just my opinion. And we're going to talk about whether that's a home field advantage or not very shortly. So I won't cross that line right now.
All right. A few things I'm going to point out here before we get to that discussion of just how much should Miami be getting here for home field advantage, because the game is obviously playing their home field. But a few things I wanted to point out. And Ross, you just hit on this. It's funny. There were people saying the Oregon-Indiana line was an overreaction to what Indiana did to Alabama. Spoiler alert, it was not an overreaction at all. I think we can all agree on that. And then I want to compare this Indiana team to last year's national champions, Ohio State, what they did in the playoff. Let's think back a year ago. The line, they just couldn't keep up the line with what the Buckeyes were doing. I remember the Texas game, Ralph, the championship game against Notre Dame. My initial reaction was, when seeing how much Ohio State was favored by in those games, I was like, this line looks a little bit heavy. But, and based on what Ohio State was doing, the answer was no, it wasn't. Ohio State was covering every spread. So, Ralph, as someone who obviously follows Ohio State closely, remembers that team last year, do you have anything to say about, comparing this run Indiana's on right now this year to Ohio State last year? Is there anything that...
Yeah, well, Indiana's makes much more sense to Ohio State to me, because remember last year, Ohio State lost 2 games and lost to Michigan. So You're talking about a team that thought, oh my God, we're just barely going to make it in the playoffs, had to host Tennessee, then play Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame to get there. Indiana, on the flip side, again, Indiana ran the table. First team in the history to win, to go undefeated in 16 games. So to me, the Indiana run is much more explainable to me than how quickly people jumped on the bandwagon from Ohio State after losing to Michigan and just running from Tennessee all the way through Notre Dame.
Okay.
If I could jump in here, you guys both make extremely good points, and I agree with you, Ralph. I also, I think about what Bryan just said, and why is Ohio State such a heavy number, laying a heavy number, with all things being considered last year. And to me, with a contrarian mindset, and also I always profess to think like an odds maker, you're going to be one step ahead of the average bear if indeed you take on that mindset. That would have applied more to Ohio State last year. Right? That's what really stuck out to me last year with Ohio State. They were a 2-loss team. They lost their regular season finale against Michigan. And here they are going into the playoffs as not a top 4 seed. They did not have a bye, and they were a heavy favorite throughout. So this one here, Indiana, you're looking at a team that's 16-0 against a 2-loss team, and you're talking about just a single-digit favorite for a team that's looked really, really exceptional in the first 2 playoff games. So to me, there's a discernible difference on how I look at Indiana this year in their games compared to what I was looking at with Ohio State in their playoff games a season ago.
I think there's one other thing we should bring up when comparing the Ohio State championship team of last year and this current Indiana team. Brand name. I think, I think there's still for some people, I think they're still skeptical. Indiana, this is the first time this program has ever been here on this level. Ohio State's a team, obviously, that has played for national championships many times over.
And Ralph, you said Indiana has the most living alumni in the country, and that's why they're coming out in full force. To me, a lot of those fans are bandwagon fans because most of them, in terms of Indiana sports, are huge Indiana backers when it came to the basketball program and all the success they've had over the years, as opposed to the Indiana football program. But in any event, if they're there and cheering, you certainly can't ignore the amount of tickets they sold for this game, and who knows how many will enter the stadium via the third-party ticket brokers. So,
well, one thing I will say this, Ross, bandwagon fans may be betting Indiana, but bandwagon fans aren't paying $4,000 to get into the Hard Rock Stadium.
Well, it depends. Okay. If you got a college degree, and especially if you went on to graduate school or whatever, I mean, you're talking a lot of those fans who are paying that $4,000 are in the upper echelon in terms of people who make an annual salary. So
fair enough. I know it's an expensive price, but it's all relative. I mean, those people.
No, but it's interesting to look at that aspect. I mean, Ralph, I don't disagree with you, but I guess I'm being the devil's advocate here and finding a way to dance around what you said, like I like to do on a weekly basis. So I'm not going to change now on the last show, Ralph.
I'll tell you this, in our chat right now, AWB4. He's saying he's been down since day one in Bloomington. He said he was there for the losses to the MAC team. So there's one guy.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of people like that out there, But let's face it, Brian. I mean, out of all those people going to this game today, how many really followed Indiana football over the last few years? I'm sure they glanced at the scores and I'm sure they were excited last year. I don't recall this kind of support for the Hoosiers last year when they went to the playoffs. So as opposed to this year. So I don't know. There's different ways, I guess you could look at it, Brian.
Yeah. And let's look at this game a different way, because we've all three teased it, this idea, because another interesting part of this championship game Monday night is where it's taking place, in Miami. Indiana, you guys watched the semifinal against Oregon. I know that game was played a long way from Bloomington down in Atlanta, but that was a home game basically that was what, 85% Indiana fans at that game. I mean, when they opened with the pick six, my word. I mean, that place, it sounded like it was in Kurt Signetti's backyard, for Christ's sake. But let's talk about this, because I'm very interested how much, because Ralph has already mentioned that, even though the game's in Miami, there very well is going to be more Indiana fans in that stadium Monday night than Miami fans. So what, if anything, are we giving Miami for home field advantage in this game? Ralph says zero.
I'm going to tell you why. Like you said, I think it's going to be at least 60% Indiana fans. Miami is the visitor, so they are not in their home locker room. And when you're at home, what's the number one thing you can count on? The players can hear a quarterback cadence. You don't have to go to a silent count. You can audible plays, and you're comfortable at home because the fans aren't loud. That's not the case at all this week. I don't think there's any home field edge. Actually, I think that puts more pressure on the kids. I think it's actually a negative. How about that? I'll give them a negative half a point home field edge versus a positive.
And Ross, I'll say this, you've followed the sport obviously for a long time. Miami is not exactly known for having a strong home field edge to begin with through the years.
No. Well, they did at the Orange Bowl. Okay.
Yes.
That used to be chaotic. And going into the Orange Bowl against the Miami Hurricanes in their heyday, back in the 80s and such, that was a tough environment to play at, actually intimidating environment to play in. That's not been the case since they moved to where Miami Dolphins play. I mean, Hard Rock, Joe Robbie, whatever you want to call that stadium at various times. But here's the thing, Ralph and Brian, Miami didn't know they were even going to get a playoff berth until the committee announced the field. It was very much up in the air between them and Notre Dame. And we remember the controversies surrounding that topic on which team would get in and what have you. And secondly, national championship games, a lot of those tickets are sold in advance to the general public. So am I saying that maybe a few Miami or Florida fans just wanted to see the national championship game and they bought those tickets a long time ago and just so happens that Miami made it there? Yeah, there's a few. Okay. But at the end of the day, other than familiarity and the playing surface and the environment, I don't think it's any kind of edge for Miami in this situation. I agree with some of the things that Ralph said. You can't even go with familiarity in your own locker room. You're now forced to go to the visitors' locker room. I think if there's any edge, it's just in familiarity, and I can't put a number on that. What's that worth? Maybe a half a point, if that. So I just don't see an edge coming in that regard.
Perhaps I'm tipping my hand a little bit, how I feel about this game, but I'll say this. I look at this spread. To me, if you're giving a goose egg for home field advantage to Miami in this game, and I concur with a lot of what you guys just said, then this spread should be even higher, I think. Actually, going back to our earlier discussion, I I don't know. When you look at what Indiana's done all year, if you're given 0 for home field advantage in this spot, I think the spread should be even higher. I will say this, though, when it comes to the spread, anyone who caught the morning wager last Friday on the Picks and Parlays YouTube channel knows I'm very comfortable with my current position. I bet Indiana plus 135 to win the championship before they bet Oregon. So I'm holding the plus 135 money line ticket while they're now 3-1 to win this game, or minus 300 to win this game. So I feel good about that. It's a little let me reach back and grab that CLV trophy right there.
Let me ask you this, Brian. How much of what you just said, thinking that Indiana should be even bigger point spread favorite based on what me and Ralph just said? We talked about perception and the odds makers factoring that into it. How many people don't have a deep dive mindset like we do when we handicap games and say Miami's at home? So I think there's a little carefulness that the odds makers did when setting this line. And with what I'm saying is I think that Indiana, based on me thinking that this is a very, very little advantage for Miami playing in their home stadium, this line should be somewhere in the area of 10.5. I agree with you on that, Brian. But I just think that, the odds makers are always factoring in the novice and general public.
And Brian, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Now, I'm not a big proponent of hedging because if you got a great bet, why give it away? But I'm going to guess.
I've thought about it, yes.
Because you said you think the line should be higher. So obviously at 8.5, you're not going to hedge. If it got to 9.5 or 10, would you hedge back on Miami, or is your number pretty well set?
Yes, I would at that. And I've actually thought about, just for the hell of it, like, yeah, okay, well, do I get cute in middle this? But I'll be honest with you. I have just one follow-up question. We're going to get to our 3 best bets on this game. Both Ross and Ralph will be talking about the total. I've got a player prop for you guys. I actually think, based on what I'm seeing and people I think Miami money is going to show up on game day. I could be wrong. We're recording this just in the interest of fairness. We're recording this on Thursday, several days before game day. I think there's going to be money that shows up on Miami. I think it's going to be similar to the Oregon-Indiana deal, where a lot of people talked themselves into the dog on that one, and they obviously looked foolish in retrospect. I know a lot of people I respect bet Oregon in that game, and it obviously was not close whatsoever. But what do you guys think? Do you guys? What do you think?
One thing to remember, Brian,
with the late
anyone
money
going to the game in Florida, there's only one place you can bet sports, is the Hard Rock. So either at the casino or at their 4 satellite casinos, those are the only app that you can bet sports betting in Florida. So we're going to see that it'll be interesting on Monday to check what the Hard Rock numbers are versus the rest of the country nationally, to see the people in state that are betting that through the only legal facility they can.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ralph, because living in South Florida for 8 years like I did, I could assure you there's a large contingent of illegal bookmakers in South Florida. However, that doesn't affect the line that we see. That affects their personal line. So, yeah, good point, Ralph.
All right. So that is some interesting points to consider here.
So, Brian, well, actually, I'm going down. I may not go to the game, but I'm going to the Hard Rock Hotel if anyone's going there Saturday and Sunday and Monday.
Yes.
If it does go crazy down here, well, actually, I don't know how. I am actually thinking at Hard Rock on Sunday when the Indiana Hoosier fans come into town, I think we'll see a spike on Indiana Sunday and then maybe come back game day, because those people coming in town want to bet as soon as they get here. They check into the Hard Rock. They're going to the sports book. They're getting their bet down so they don't screw up or forget. So I'll check with you Saturday night, Brian, to see how much the Hard Rock at line actually peaks, to see if Indiana does push it to 10. And then, like you said, then I could see a bunch of EV bettors coming in at a double digit and ramming down the Miami line back to the 8.5 or 8 again.
Yeah.
By the way, we'll have a table set up for Ralph. We have an autograph section, and if you want to take a picture with Ralph and him sign the picture for you, feel free to join him.
He'll have his
Look
pen.
for the guy playing Pai Gow drinking a Miller Lite.
Okay. Don't tell Joe Ranieri about Pai Gow. He told me a story about he was stuck 9 hours for doing that plan with Prez for about 9 hours. He said he won 20 bucks.
Why even drink if you're going to drink light beer? So you could have a beer in your hand, Ralph. But then again, Ralph drinks.
I thought this season's over. No more making fun of Rolf drinking Miller Lite. No more bringing up Lane Kiffin. No more talking.
I made the over and under 12.5, I believe, when you went to the Orange Bowl game.
I didn't make it because I was going to go with someone they didn't go. So, but I will say this, Ross. I have a friend that said, he may come down to the game, and if he comes down to the game, he has an extra ticket for me. He'll sell me at face value, so I'll go. So I'm not even planning to go to the game. I'm just actually hanging out with the fans and the craziness that's going to happen. I mean, the Hard Rock Guitar Hotel is really only 3 miles from the Hard Rock Stadium.
Yeah,
so, I mean, there really is that entire area that's just going to be incredible.
I was there in the early stages when that just opened, so I can only imagine how it looks now because it was beautiful then.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do have one question rolling in before we actually have a special offer we want to let you guys know about. And then we're going to go into our 3 best bets. Each of us has one for the national championship game. How much it all comes down to how much you trust Beck's passing to win. Carson Beck, kind of the forgotten quarterback, I suppose, in this game with so much attention being paid to Fernando Mendoza. What do you guys? I mean, Carson Beck, honestly, what I've seen from him, so certainly in the first 2 games, he didn't do much against A&M and Ohio State. I don't know. Let me just throw this out there. Miami to pull an outright upset. Is it Carson Beck? Is it turnovers? Is it both A and B? Is it something else? I'll open the floor. Ross, how about you go first?
Well, he's played very disciplined football, Carson Beck, I'm alluding to, as opposed to what he did earlier in the year when he threw a boatload of interceptions. So I think that if he stays within himself and he manages the game and Miami doesn't fall behind by multiple touchdowns where they have to become one-dimensional, I think he's very capable of pulling the upset or helping Miami pull that upset. So we'll see. Again, Miami's defense is very good too. But what bothers me with Miami's defense, Ralph, is what we saw in the second half of the Ole Miss game, where Ole Miss really had their way offensively in that second half.
Yeah, you look at that game and remember it was 14-13 at half, and the yards were even. But Mississippi, actually, Ross, I'm looking now. Second half, Miami actually had a 310 to 250-yard edge. So Miami still had the edge. So Ole Miss was able to move, but Miami was also able to move on Ole Miss. Now,
well, I mean, I don't think Miami's going to be able to put up those types of numbers against this Indiana defense.
Ole Miss, completely agree.
Ole Miss's defense compared to even the Final 4 or the Final 8 is probably one of the weakest units in the field. So, it's still, Ralph, 250 yards and a half against a team that had been so dominant in the first, 5+ halves of football in the playoffs was a little bit alarming to me.
I wrote down some props real quick, just FYI, if you guys are shopping. Mendoza is about 230. Obviously, they change. Beck is about 210. And if you want to bet either team to have 250 pass yards, you can get minus 115. Brian, I don't want to give away a play if you're using this again, but last week, I think you used one quarterback with more passing yards than the other.
No, that wasn't me.
Okay, sorry about that, but Mendoza's minus 150 to have more passing yards than Beck. And, Beck had 268 against Mississippi, but 138 yards passing against Ohio State, 103 passing yards against A&M. Clearly has me say if I had to choose over under 210, I'd be going with the under against this defense.
All right. Ralph, would you like to tell the people here before we get into our best bets about this exclusive special offer that we've got for all of our listeners here. A way to say thank you for tuning into the Blitz every Thursday here on the WagerTalk YouTube channel all season. This is, of course, guys, in case you haven't figured it out, the last edition of the Blitz for this college football season, as there will be no more games.
You know what? Let's just go back a little bit. Beginning of the football season, Bryan said, hey, let's get a college football weekly show together. And, we were trying to figure out who else to add. And Ross's name came up, and he's been an absolutely incredible addition. And I've had a wonderful time with both of you guys, and I thank you for allowing me to be on the panel with you. And also thank you to all of our customers. Again, you guys have made the show what it is. We're excited about taking it to a next level last year. And the number of people that comment and we have week in and week out, again, truly, each of us thanks you from the bottom of my heart for taking time out. And we just wanted to say thank you back. We made a coupon code, THANKS50, THANKS50, no space, for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Anything you buy from Ross, $300 or less, 50% off. Anything you buy from Bryan Power, $300 or less, 50% off, and myself. That means you could buy us each for 30 days. You could buy us each for a week. You could buy daily packages. And I do want to mention this, guys. I do have my second college basketball 5% of the season tonight.
Oh.
Thanks 50 will work for that. Don't pay $35. You as a Blitz viewer, and this is the only place we're showing this coupon code is to you, the viewer. Blitz 50 will work tonight for my college basketball 5%.
Okay. Thanks to all of you again for that. And I guess it's best bet time. I'll let, when we roll through our best bets, we can all talk about what we may have up if we already have something up for Monday's championship game. Obviously, a very busy weekend with the National Football League playoffs Saturday and Sunday as well. Basketball rolling full steam. So a lot going on at wagertalk.com. Check us all out. Ralph gave you the coupon code. We'll give you again before we sign off today. Ralph, I'm actually going to come right back to you because you guys are both talking about the total. Your bet is for the first quarter. Ross's is for the first half. So I think it is only natural that I would cede the floor to you, Ralph, first here to get us going with our bets segment.
Well, let me say this. We've said it the last few weeks. It's the national championships. It's the NFL playoffs. If you truly like a team, bet them like you would during the regular season, but don't force action unless you're just having fun bets on this game. I don't think I'm going to have a side or a total play on Monday. It's the national championship. People want action, but if this game were played on a traditional Saturday with 50 plus games, it would not make my card. So I'll still look for some props and some youth situations, but I did find this, and I've had a lot of success playing these first half unders in these playoff games in the certain situations. And again, with these two defenses, I'm going to play first quarter under. Now, listen to this split. DraftKings has 7.5 minus 115. FanDuel has 9.5 at plus 105. You're talking about a 2.5 point difference with 20 cents juice if you have a FanDuel account versus a DraftKings account. In the first quarter this season, Miami has 1 over, 13 unders, and 1 push. In their last 12 games in the first quarter, Miami has 0 overs, 11 unders, and 1 push. Indiana, first quarter, the last 6 weeks, they're 1-5-1 over under. And while they did go over the first quarter last game, let's remember this. They basically were shut out. Oregon handed them 2 touchdowns for them to score 14 points for that first quarter to go over. Slow start, immense pressure. Both teams having loud fan bases to have to fight with. Under first quarter for me. 7.5 at DraftKings, 9.5 at FanDuel.
All right, so that's one best bet in. Ralph likes the first quarter under. Ross now. Ralph is handing the ball to you and saying there's not going to be a lot of points scored in the first 15 minutes. What about the second 15 minutes? And then as we head into the break, the first half total, how are you looking at that one? I think we all have it.
If Ralph is correct, which he is most of the time, then I feel pretty good about my pick. Before I get to that, real quick, guys, Bryan, I appreciate you. I think, there's a lot of great hosts over at WagerTalk.com, but for this specific format, I couldn't think of a better host to work with.
Thank you.
And Ralph, I tease you, I break your hump and all that, but you're a true legend in this business. And it's been an absolute joy to work with both of you guys throughout the course of the college football season. And hopefully we could do it again next year.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get right to my pick. It's the total 23.5 in the first half and pretty much across the board, wherever you're looking or shopping at. Again, I mentioned this last week, and it's worth mentioning again. Miami went under the first half total in 13 of 15 games this year. So in those games, averaged 20 points scored per game at halftime. And in addition, if Miami was facing a team that allows 120 yards or less rushing per game, which Indiana allows is 75 yards rushing per game, they played 6-0 to the under against the first half total in those contests. And also in the playoffs this year, their three playoff games have averaged a combined 14.6 points per game scored in first half action. Also, Indiana 5-1 to the under against the first half total in either away or neutral site games against explosive offenses that average 31 points or more per game. And Miami certainly qualifies in that regard. This is an Indiana team that's allowed a combined 7 points in the first half of their two playoff games against Alabama and Oregon. Think about that. A combined 7 points allowed against two opponents that are explosive offensive teams like Alabama and Oregon. And Miami has allowed just a combined 13 points in the first half of their first three playoff games, and against pretty good competition in A&M, Ohio State, and Ole Miss. So I'm going to go under the first half total here, guys. I hope Ralph is right, because if he's under the first half or first quarter total, it leads me in the right direction to have a winning ticket on under 23.5 first half total in the Miami-Indiana National Championship game.
Under first quarter, under first half. There you go. We think it's going to be a low-scoring start Monday night in Miami. Smash that like button if you agree. Feel free to comment down below with how you're betting the total as well. I will have one play, at least, on Monday's championship game. We're off to a nice start this week. Perfect 3-0 the last 2 days in hoops. Reminder, 26-14 college football run. And honestly, it should be a lot better. I had one of the worst losers I've ever had. I'm going to admit this right now on the Indiana-Oregon game. I was the only person rooting for Indiana that somehow lost on that game. I had Oregon under 21.5 points, and they scored 22 thanks to that 2-point conversion. To say that I was upset on Friday night would be putting it mildly, but that's okay. We've bounced back, like I said, 3-0 the last 2 days, and we're going to see it well. We're going to close out the season strong, and I don't think you guys in the chat are going to like this play that I have to run our best bet. I'm going to preface it with that. It is a player prop. I see some people already who I think are thinking the opposite, but that's okay. I've always walked against the wind. I've always marched the beat of my own drum. I'm taking a look at Fernando Mendoza under 16.5 rushing yards for the game. Now, this bet would seem to be pretty insane, guys, given that Mendoza has gone over this number in 11 of 15 games this season. But consider the following. Trinidad Chambliss, the Ole Miss quarterback, he finished with only 7 yards rushing against this Miami defense in the semifinal. Outside of the 173-yard run by Kewan Lacey, Ole Miss ran for just 48 yards the rest of the game. However, interestingly enough, and this was, I think, the big takeaway for me watching Miami Ole Miss, and it's something that I don't know if has gotten enough play in the analysis for the championship game. Chambliss had more time to throw than all of us anticipated against this Miami defense. And Ole Miss, these guys laid out the yardage earlier on. Ole Miss was very successful in the passing game. Indiana, as we all know, has a better offensive line than Ole Miss. And thus, I think it's going to hold up well here. That means two things. One, Mendoza's going to have time to throw. And two, he's not going to need to take off and run as much. Similar to Ole Miss, I think it's through the air where the Indiana offense has most of its success in this game. Conversely, let's remember, It's college. Sack yardage goes against the rushing total. So if the Miami pass rush is getting home by some chance, that's another reason to like the under on this prop. So regardless of game script, guys, I like Fernando Mendoza under 16.5 rush yards. Somebody agrees with me. This number actually opened 18.5. So there you have it. I'm not alone after all.
You know what, Brian? I was thinking sack props, and I was thinking I was going to take Mendoza under, right? Because you watch this kid. He is so smart. He knows how to audible. He gets the ball out so quick. So I was actually shocked when I looked. You look at Indiana's last 6 games. He was sacked 3 times against Alabama. He was sacked 3 times against Ohio State. He was sacked 5 times against Wisconsin, and he was sacked 3 times against Penn State. That actually shocked me because watching him, I don't have that thought process in my head that he was sacked that many times against those good teams. But again, you watch him last week against Oregon, and he just, I'll tell you what, I thought the kid was sort of fake, and I wasn't a fan early. The more and more I read about this kid, listen, he is brilliant. He is almost like Mensa brilliant. He studies things. He knew everybody's players when he came here. He is a smart, athletic quarterback that has every skill set. He deserves to go to, well, he doesn't, let me say this. He doesn't deserve to go to the Las Vegas Raiders, but he does deserve to be the #1 pick. So how about that?
And he's got the best looking mother in college football.
Excuse
and
me.
they takes over the crown for Jackson Dart's mother last year.
I'll tell you what. Let's talk.
We'll have to get Ross's mother rankings through the years here on the program. I'd be interested in seeing
Ralph
that.
did handicap ticket sales. I'm going to handicap the way the mothers look. So
all right, how about this? How many times did we have to drink a shot every time they would show Testaverde's dad on TV back in the 80s at the U? I mean,
he had to stop
4 times a game.
Had to stop watching his games when he went to the Browns because he had a heart attack during a game, didn't he?
That's right. That's right. Yes, that is a true. That is
accurate.
Absolutely a true story. Yes, that is a true story.
Yeah. So
that
at
would
least
give
they're
me a
showing
heart
the wives
attack
now and
not
not
being able to
the
watch a game.
dads.
Yeah. I remember Bubby Brister's mom back in the day a lot. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan, you remember playing the Steelers. They'd always show Bubby's mom. All right. Is there any? Go ahead, Ross. I'm sorry.
Bubby Brister. Boy,
Yes.
oh boy, nostalgia we're going after today.
Yes. Let me just go through the questions here. You guys have been so loyal. Again, I would just like to echo the sentiments that Ralph and Ross laid out. It's been a pleasure to work with these guys.
And by the way,
hopefully you've learned something.
AWB4, kneel downs are not a sack. If it's a legitimate kneel down, that does not count a sack and does not go against the negative rush records.
Yeah. Yes. But it would. Oh yeah, absolutely. So, and then one last thing here. Where was the question? There was a good, because we were talking about when you were talking about Beck and Mendoza. Oh, here it is. Seth is one of our loyal viewers here on WagerTalk TV. Wouldn't it make more sense for Beck to have more passing yards if they're supposed to be down by 2 scores? So if the game script that a lot of people are banking on here, that Indiana is leading, do we think that necessarily translates into Beck having more passing yards? We'll have more attempts, certainly, if they're trailing. But do you guys have anything to comment?
Yeah, I mean, well, you look at Indiana's only allowing 75 yards per game on the ground. I said that hopefully, they don't become one-dimensional, Miami. If they can't run the ball and you think that Miami's going to have little success, if any, running the ball, then, yeah, I think that you would need to look at Beck's passing props. But, I'm not a prop guy. So,
Sure.
And Carson Beck, to me, the guy, is he more talented than Mendoza? No, I don't think so. But he's been in a lot of big games going back to his Georgia days.
And Brian, maybe this, maybe, again, we're picking hairs here, and I'm talking about fun bets only. But if your thought process is that if Miami is trailing, Beck will get his yards, should you bet Indiana first half so they are trailing to get Beck do it? Or do you want to hedge it and bet Miami first?
It's a lot of conjecture.
Things, but there are a lot of times that you can find value if you want to bowl multiple. A lot of work in that. I don't find the value of spending in the time to try to do that, but that's the way you sort of have to play out the game. If you're going to bet props, make sure you're playing out the game in your head and see if there's any bets getting to that situation that can benefit or hedge for you or find a better way to do it. One example was this, Ross and I both gave out the under, right? And I think the
Mhm.
money line on Miami was plus 275. But I found something. If you think there's going to be some points and you like Miami on the money line, you can get Miami at plus 500 to win the game and both teams to score 20 points or more. So that's not asking much more to get a money line from plus 275 all the way to plus 500 for both teams to score 20 points. So if you find something you like, don't stop there. There may be a subset or an additional thing that you can add to even give you more value.
A lot of correlated bets indeed. All right, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up. Ralph, you want to give them that coupon code one more time as our way to say thanks to everyone who's tuned into the show all year.
Thanks 50. THANKS 50. Ross, Bryan, or I, anything you buy from us, $300 or less. Each purchase, again, you could buy a month for $300, another month for $300, and another month for $300, just to give you a little cheat code there to get a 90-day package for the price of 6 months. But thanks 50. Any player package any of us have through the national championship game on Monday, our way of saying truly thank you for being fans of the Blitz.
Yes. Thanks to everyone who tuned in live. If there's something you forgot to ask, feel free to ask on the, obviously this video will be posted to the WagerTalk YouTube channel. If you're catching us on replay, you can comment as well. We'll be checking the comments section, obviously, all the way up until kickoff on Monday. All right. I guess the final edition of the Blitz is in the books. Ross and Ralph, it has been my pleasure. To everyone who watched, thank you very much. Be back next season. Until then, let's cash that one more ticket.